Fantastic. Hey guys, so I'm live here today with none other than Dan J. Gregory of the Unstoppable podcast. He is a leader in online business and helping people develop their unstoppable minds. So Dan, my man, how are you, brother?
I'm great. Thank you so much for having me. We were just saying offline, it's great to speak to you because every time we speak, the sun is shining. It's a beautiful day, and I'm delighted to be here with you, my man.
Just sending the good vibes from Australia to the UK. I think it's what it is, isn't it?
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. I appreciate that.
For our audience who haven't met you before, what is it that you do? What is it that the Unstoppable Mind and Unstoppable Entrepreneur is?
It's a great question. So, this is interesting. I just did a training last week with some of my clients talking about how do you convey your message to the world? Because it's the dreaded question, what do you do? Because many of us as entrepreneurs are multi-talented, multifaceted. And it's a question that actually I've struggled with over the last 5 years to answer. But right now I say to people, what I do, Joss, is I help people to develop the mindset, the character, the behaviors and the skills necessary to become unstoppable in the modern business world. And the reason I say that is because, I've been in business now for 5 years. And when I first started, I thought it was all about the strategies. I thought it was all about the tactics, and those things are important. But I realized that myself as the leader within the business was the person that was standing in the way of creating the business that I wanted to create. So I've been on quite a bit of a journey, but right now I'm really centered on that unstoppable mindset to cultivate the thought processes, the habits, the belief systems, and the routines that are necessary to really unleash the entrepreneurial potential.
Okay, so talk me through this. What is business? Is it the podcast? Is it trainings?
Yeah, great question. So the podcast I launched in 2015. So that was after about 3.5 years of kind of stress, struggle, and sacrifice in the business. I started the business with a very clear vision, and it was built upon the skills and expertise that I'd built in 7 years of corporate. Where at the final couple of years, I was traveling around the UK, delivering leadership workshops, helping people to improve their results and transforming results through people. So when I started my business, it was my intention to continue doing that, but with a more of an entrepreneurial small business audience. But I read the 4-Hour Work Week, and that business changed my idea. It changed my trajectory, and it gave me a different concept of what I wanted to create in business. And it began this path of exploration. And as a result of that, over the first 3.5 years, I really went through this period of experimentation, and I went through a lot of challenges and a lot of struggles. So in 2015, it was kind of the point where I said, I'm just drawing a line under the sand, and I really want to figure out what it is I'm here to do. And I gave a talk just last week saying, when you follow your passion, it's not necessarily going to take you up the right path. It's going to take you potentially up the wrong mountain. And what I realized instead is if I follow my true purpose, my reason for being here on the planet, then I can create a greater difference. So in 2015, I started the Unstoppable podcast, which was my kind of moment to say that enough is enough. The struggle has to end. And so the podcast was my way to talk about some of the challenges, because I thought, like many of us do when we're solo entrepreneurs, we think we're the only person experiencing these challenges. But what I realized, there's a whole world of people going through the same struggles, the same frustrations. So I said, right, the podcast is my way to talk through the challenges I've overcome, the ones I'm experiencing, but also to share lessons from people who have gone way beyond the struggle and challenge, who have gone way beyond to create, great things through their business. They've created great things in their life, that they're able to have it all in business and life. So I wanted to share my own experience as someone who's a hunter and a gatherer of wisdom and knowledge, and then for someone who's already walked the path. And, it's that blend of the journey. So that's where the podcast began in 2015. And it was really my method to give back to the audience and share the message. And that's my entry point to the business. And then beyond that, I've got an entrepreneurial program called the Unstoppable Entrepreneur, which is the way I actually deliver the trainings that I do, which is all done online.
Okay. You made an interesting point there about following your passion versus following your reason. Could you elaborate a bit more on that?
I sure can. So what's really interesting about passion is that, in my corporate career, when I was in corporate for 7 years, worked in financial services. And when I first started, I found I was passionate about the work I was doing. I'd had a very kind of, I'd never went without in my upbringing, but I never had any luxuries. I never went overseas. It was a very first world problem kind of lifestyle where I didn't really have any of these, major things in life. So when I first started in my career, it was all of a sudden I was earning money, I was being developed, and I was really excited about what I was doing. And I developed kind of quite a lot of passion for the work I was doing. But then halfway through my career, I suddenly started questioning why I was there and what I was doing. and what impact I was making, and was this what I really wanted? And the more I asked those questions, the more I realized I wasn't actually that passionate anymore about what I was doing. And the moment I lost my passion, my performance began to dwindle, and the more my passion descended, the more my performance went with it. And I decided something's got to change. But what happened is I continued working in my corporate career for another 3 years. It was easy to get the paycheck on the 20th of the month, time after time after time, and it was this fear that stopped me from making the decision. So I finally made the decision 1 year before my 30th birthday. I was like, right, I've had this goal of starting a business. It's been on my list. It's been on my dream list for the last 5 years. I've got to bite the bullet and do it. I've got to do it by the time I'm 30. So I finally did it, and I decided to build a business.
Is that what pushed you over the edge there, or is it another?
Yeah, that's a good question. So there's a couple of things. That's a very good question, because there's an important moment. There was a couple of defining moments, and being in financial services and in banking, I'd seen the financial recession really take its toll. I didn't have any involvement in pressing the red button and starting it. Being in the banking world, my friends joke about that. It was me that started it. I was very far removed from the center of that kind of stuff. But I witnessed a lot of challenges in the marketplace, from people struggling to pay their bills, to people losing their jobs, to losing their businesses. And there was a distinct day where I met two business owners in the same city. It's a small city called Exeter, down in the south of England. And I met two business owners in the same industry in the same small city. One guy was coming to the bank to borrow more money because he was growing his business. It was expanding. And the other guy was coming in to borrow money because his business was failing miserably, and he was losing his business, losing his family, losing his mind, effectively. And what struck me was the differences between the two businesses. And what I'd realized, and by this point I'd already been exploring what I wanted to do next when I leave my corporate employment. And I realized that there was people I could help. And the second guy who was really struggling, he's losing his family, he's losing his business. This guy was in immense pain, and we couldn't lend him money. It had been throwing good money after bad. But I realized that if I could have got to him 6 to 12 months earlier, I could have helped him prevent some of the problems that he was facing. And that was just a bit of a kick in the mouth, and it's just woke me up and thought, I can make a difference here. And I cannot make the difference once I'm in this organization. I have the skills and talent to help this person, but I'm restricted from giving that advice, because all I was authorized to talk about was the numbers, the financials. I couldn't give any business strategy advice, leadership. I couldn't do any of that stuff, because it would come back on the organization if I did. But in that moment, I was like, I've got to go out there and make a difference. I can help these people. I've spent the last 7 years observing businesses that are succeeding, businesses that are failing, and I've noticed patterns that make the difference.
So yes,
I want to go out there and help.
Frustration of just seeing it, not being able to actually do anything about it at that point.
Yeah, in a glancing moment, I suddenly realized that I was not able to fulfill my potential in the work that I was doing. I knew that there was something more for me. I knew there was a greater purpose, and I knew there was greater meaning that I could create, but I was not able to create that in my organization. And don't get me wrong, I was successful in what I was doing, even though the passion had dropped and my performance began to dwindle. I was still very successful. I was operating at a high level, but it just didn't mean the same things to me anymore, and I knew I wanted to leave. So I then left to start my business, follow my passion. But as I said, 3.5 years in, things weren't going very well, and suddenly I felt my passion had gone again. And the reason I say it's bad advice to follow your passion is because passion is a fleeting emotion. We've all had relationships with, guys and girls that, we've had relationships we were once deeply passionate about that person, but now where's the passion? It's gone. We've all had jobs where, I said about my career, I was passionate at the beginning, but it's gone. We all have things that we were passionate about 6 months ago, but we're not passionate about now. Passion is an emotion that shifts in the night. It's like a candle in the wind. It blows out, it lights up, it flickers. It changes all the time. And what I see in the marketplace, I was one of them myself. And the reason I see it is because I was someone who was just constantly chasing my passion. So the first 3.5 years, I was just moving my business all the while. It kept changing because I kept following the passion. So when it got to that crunch point, I said, that enough is enough. I got to find out what I really want here. And what I really realized I wanted when I looked at what are the ultimate driving forces in my life, I looked at reevaluating my values and looking at what life means to me. What I wanted most was purpose and meaning. So then at that point, I decided to realign everything around my business around purpose and meaning. And what that does, Josh, is you start looking at the world differently. Because when you're following your passion, you're doing it for you. You're doing it for you. But when you're following a purpose, you're doing it for a greater cause. And I believe the way to create true, meaningful work in this life is to solve problems that other people are facing on this planet. And that's how you add value. And then once you do that, you find a path of mastery. You find the area of life that you truly want to spend your time working within. You find the problems in this world that you want to center your focus and attention around. And when you do that, the passion will follow. The passion will follow the work that you do. So rather than chasing passion, my motto now is allow the passion to chase you. And what's really interesting, we talked about the recession, right? So I looked this up on the Google trend. You can go on Google and look at the trends in terms of the search volumes of different things. And follow your passion since 2008 has been on an upward trend dramatically. And what happened in 2008 is the recession. People started questioning, what is my life about? And I think it's led to this seismic shift in the marketplace where people are looking for something different. But my advice to anyone listening or watching this, I would say, look for what really matters to you. Because when you find work that matters and you find work that you can add value to the world and you can solve problems that contribute to mankind, then you'll find true mastery.
That in itself is very interesting for one reason. Entrepreneurship has become cool. Like
it has, doesn't it? Yeah.
There's this, people have a cool vibe about entrepreneurship, but I think most people who consider it cool just for the sake of it don't actually understand the work that goes behind it. They've never actually put in a day of actually working in a business of their own, understanding what changes.
Absolutely. And, the social media we live in right now, we live life through a filter. We live life through a lens. It's very easy to look at what's above the surface, but what's going on below the surface. I know many successful people that have become clients of mine. And when you get into the heart of what's going on in their life and they're experiencing deep pain, deep challenges, frustrations, and what shows up on the surface ain't necessarily what's going on at the core. So you have to be very aware of that because, as business owners, as marketers, of course, we want to paint ourselves in the best possible light. But, the reality is there's stuff going below the surface, and I said it at a talk on Sunday that, if you truly have no challenges in your life right now, you don't have big enough goals, because the bigger the goals you set, instantly, the moment you set a big goal, you're opening up the door to big challenges. So, if you're experiencing...
Let's talk about challenges, because I think that's very important in developing that unstoppable mind you're talking about. So what challenges will people face as they become entrepreneurs, and give us a bit more insight into how you've been working with that.
Good one. So here's the thing, right? So I draw the parallel again between skipping out of employment, because a lot of people that I work with are either they've just come out of their corporate careers or they're looking to do so. What's interesting is I thought I had a lot of responsibility in my corporate life. I had teams of over 200 people. I was working in 20 different locations, managing a P&L of over 30 million, a territory of like the size of Switzerland. I thought I had a lot of responsibility. But the moment I kicked that in the can and started my own business, you don't realize what responsibility means until every decision you make will determine whether you're going to pay the bills or you're going to eat. That's responsibility. So when you're starting a business, it doesn't matter how qualified you are in what you do. And I consider myself to be relatively qualified in the area that I was working. When I came out and started my business, all of a sudden, every decision weighed upon my shoulders. And you take for granted in corporate, like how much is done for you. The corporate strategy is set for you. The infrastructure is built for you. The recruitment and the hiring is done for you. You just got to go and execute. Whereas when you start a business for yourself, everything is on you at the beginning, at least in most cases, especially in this kind of solo entrepreneur world that we kind of operate in. Everything is on you. So what that immediately means is you're going to have some choices to make. Which market are you going to work with? What is your product and service going to be? Which problem are you going to solve in the marketplace? How are you going to reach the people you want to serve? How are you going to operate the business? How are you going to monetize what you do? There's all these questions that you must face when you first start. And then, of course, when you're out on your own and you've suddenly left that support network behind,
you get stuck in the minutia of stuff as well.
It's stuck in the minutia stuff. And what happened to me is I just got totally inert. I just got to the point where I ended up procrastinating, all this self-doubt and fear. And the interesting thing is, I call it the lag of execution. So the moment you have the idea versus the time it takes to actually get it into action, the longer that period is, the more space you create for doubt and fear. So what I did at the time, I had all these great ideas and all these great business ideas and plans. I just got caught up in self-doubt and fear because I didn't implement it fast enough. I always felt I needed to know more. I always thought I needed to go to another class. I needed to read another book. I needed to study another technique before I execute. So this is a challenge I would avoid, strongly encourage people to avoid going back. If I could go back again, the fastest way to learn, the fastest way to develop your business is to get in the trenches, dive in, start doing stuff. Yes, listen to mentors. Yes, yes, be guided, but spend a lot of your time learning in the trenches and getting out there and taking massive, massive action. I'd grown up listening to Tony Robbins in my corporate career. I'd heard the guy saying in my ears the whole time, take massive action. Yet what did I do when I started my business? I just shrunk. I shrunk inside of myself. So, and there are a lot of people going through this who just won't admit it. Their ego is so strong that they won't admit the struggles. But what I will say, I've grown up in an environment where it's not shown, showing emotion and showing vulnerability is not something that has been encouraged within the upbringing that I'd had. It's no fault of the people I'm surrounded by, my family or my family's family. It's just the way of life of a previous generation. Yeah, if you continue to struggle in silence, then you will never find the support that you need. And the support is out there, so for anyone listening or watching this right now, you're speaking my language, I'm in that zone. Then just free yourself by just admitting the fact that you're in a point of struggle, and seek guidance. There's people out there who have already walked the path. They can help you find the way.
I think that's something key in itself. The journey of becoming an entrepreneur and succeeding in your business is really a journey of personal development, because the only thing you're overcoming is yourself.
Absolutely. And what's interesting as well as solo entrepreneurs, we tend to spend a lot of time by ourselves. But I did a study on this a few years back, and from a psychological point of view, there is a massive damaging effect of spending too much time on your own in terms of your own outlook and your own productivity and your own mindset. So I suddenly realized that during this time of struggle, I'd been grinding it by myself in my home office back in my house, rarely seeing the rest of the world. I lived in a remote part of Bristol, which was outside of the city I was living. So I wasn't connecting with...
ask a bit more questions about that. When you say you're grinding out by yourself, were you grinding out by yourself totally isolated, or were you doing this online podcast at the time as well?
Now, this is way before the podcast. When it were pre-podcast, I was creating content. I was writing a blog. So
this was doing trainings, same Unstoppable.
Yeah, all the initial kind of material. But the point is, when I first started out, I had all these ideas. I was a multi-talented, multi-passionate guy, and I just didn't find my path. So I was trying to meet all of these different passions, and that's my point about when you follow the passion, you don't create a clear message to the world. And one of the biggest challenges I had was that I didn't carve my direction in a solid straight line. So it wasn't, to receive the eye of the beholder, it was very unclear how I could help this person. Yet when you find the path that you're destined to be on, and you find that problem in the market that you want to solve, and you spend all of your time mastering the skills around how to solve that problem, and you start communicating to the world about the symptoms of that problem that you solve, then people can start to relate to you. But that was a challenge, So when it comes to some of the challenges that people are going to face when they first kick off their business, is about how do you communicate to the market in a way that attracts people to you. And what I say to people right now is that number one is once you've identified the problem that someone is facing, either in business or life, for example, in business, if you've decided the number one problem you're going to solve is to help people find more leads because they're struggling to get leads, then rather than talking about the problem, because some people are pre-problem aware, as marketers, we know this, people aren't aware of the problem yet. So, if I'm walking around, let's take a parallel example. If I suddenly develop a fever, a headache, and there's a bizarre rash appearing on my body, those are the symptoms of the problem, but I don't know what the problem is yet. It's unrecognizable. It could be the measles, it could be chickenpox, it could be some bizarre flu. I don't know what it is. I don't know what the problem is, but I'm certainly aware of the symptoms, right? So the same is true in business and life. Most people walking around right now are in some level of struggle, and they're thinking about the symptoms and the way that the problem shows up in their life. They're not necessarily thinking about the core of the problem, and they're probably definitely not thinking about the cause. So as entrepreneurs and marketers, the goal we need to address is how do we then talk about the symptoms of the problem that the clients or prospective clients are facing. And it took me a long time to learn this lesson, but the more you can speak about the specific way that your clients are thinking about the problem, then you can communicate to someone in a way that enables you to to experience life as if you're experiencing life through their eyes. So when they hear the message or they read the message or they receive your communication, it's like, oh my God, this person is talking directly to me. But that's so far from where I was at the beginning. So I was just chasing all these different passions, and there was no clear direction. There was no synergy between the message. So, when someone starts a business, it's about, number one, who are you here to be a hero to? Who are you here to be a hero to? Who do you want to serve? And what challenges are they facing right now in business or life? And then on the other side of that is, what are they moving towards? What do they want? Because in order to create a compelling solution for someone, what we want to be thinking about is, how do we take them out of pain and take them into pleasure? I say it to my clients, I break it down in like childlike terms. Take someone from sad face to happy face. That's all we're doing with our products and services. I don't care if it's in business or some area of someone's life. All we're doing, entrepreneurship is simply the art of creating profit from solving problems. And in order to do that, we need to figure out, what is the pain or frustration or challenge or problem that someone is facing? And then what is the goal? What is the aspiration? Where are they heading? What do they want to achieve? And then we just help them close that gap. That's what our products and services do. But it took me a long time to figure out these fundamentals. So a lot of the work that I do now is around helping people to master those fundamentals. Because if you're going to build a business, you want to build it on rock, not sand. You want to build it on solid foundations. If you try and build an empire on the beach, it's going to get washed away. So you need to build it on solid foundations. So a lot of the work I do is helping people make sure the fundamentals are in place, but then wrapping that around you as the leader, because ultimately the foundations are only as strong as the leader. So that's where the Unstoppable Mind really comes in.
Brilliant. So a lot of, I guess, foundational stuff. This is what the actual structure is. This is what you should be looking at. Whilst it's important, you look at it's process. You just follow the process. It'll be done. But really, what you seem to focus on is what the mindset of that individual is. And you mentioned that you do this in a group and individual setting. How do you cater to that in a group setting?
So it's actually fascinating. So a group dynamic, I've got the best result. It's funny enough, I've got some of the best results in a group setting. Historically, when I first started, I started on a one-to-one basis, and I thought I would get better results one-to-one. But what's interesting about the group dynamic, and it's the art of facilitation, because in order to create that transformation in a group situation, you have to really create an open context from the beginning. So there's a lot of what I call pre-framing that goes on during the initial creation of the setup for the workshop, because you need to create a space for people where they feel able and capable to be vulnerable and to share their challenges and to share their own frustrations and share their own life story, really. So in order to do that in week one, in any workshop that I do, first of all, I tell my story, and I just don't hold anything back. I just share every vulnerability that I can possibly share and just lead by example. Then I set the framework for the program and set the stall in terms of what's expected. What are the rules of the game when it comes to being part of the Unstoppable Entrepreneur? What do we abide by? And one of those things is it's being open, it's being honest, it's being transparent, and it's about respecting each other. So then, when I transition into talking about the other people, the other members of the group, we have an open session. With the introductory session is all about getting to know each other, and we talk about defining moments. What are those 3 to 5 defining moments that you've experienced in your life that really either caused you great pain or create a pivot point in your life where you create a transformation? And what's really interesting is when you facilitate that environment, you see people open up and they share things that they probably never shared with other people before, because they realize that they're no longer alone. They are not alone in experiencing those challenges. And it's rare for people to have that opportunity just to let go of some of the pains and challenges they've been through. It doesn't matter how successful someone already is. People deem successful people to be challenge free. And like I said, they're not. They have more challenges than anyone else. It's not the way. It's not the way. So creating that framework for people to be able to open up, what that does is it creates real bonds and it creates relatability. And like I always say to my clients is that there is no unique problem. There is no unique problem in the world. There is no unique problem. There is just a unique set of circumstances that make the problem what seem unique.
It's a fascinating thing about the people I've known who are deemed successful by others. They always feel like they operate at maybe 20% of their potential at most. Absolutely.
Well, studies have shown in terms of the brain's capacity, most people will only ever use 3 to 5% of their actual capacity of their mind. And there's things that I've started to research right now, which is showing me how you can unlock more of that, because that's such a small amount. And the research that I read into said that if you can increase your brain capacity by 1%, you would have the capacity to pass the top 25 PhD applications for the most challenging universities in the world. You would literally get that brain power from increasing by 1%. You would have that capacity to be accepted into some of the biggest and most powerful institutions in the world at PhD level, where you're creating doctorhood in your field. That's the impact that you can create if you can expand the capacity of your mind. So even those that are achieving at the highest level, there is so much more scope, and that's exciting for humanity, because we're only scratching the surface, and science and neuroscience and psychology is all starting to catch up with what's possible for the human race. And that stuff fascinates me. I'm looking at everything from what's called neuroplasticity, which is how our brain retains information. Yes, I'm looking at DNA and at the impact of DNA on human performance and regeneration of DNA, and how you can. I'm looking at every level of human performance right now. And as I said to you at the beginning, this is such a journey away from where I began in business. But part of the reason why it's happening is that now I'm returning to the core of what really excited me before I even started the business.
And that's what. Have you had Stephen Kotler or Jamie Wheel on the show yet?
No, I haven't. No, I must do. Yes. Good point. That's a good reminder. Yeah, they're on the list.
Perfect. All right. So what's the most exciting you about the future? What is it what's next in the life of Unstoppable Mind, Unstoppable Entrepreneur, and Dan J. Gregory in general?
So here's what I'm working on this summer, because we have the summer now here in the UK, so it's apt that it's starting. So I'm creating this concept called the Summer of Freedom right now. This is going to be my next big promotion. I've just launched a little mini course called the Business Freedom mini course, which is just a 5-day free mini course, which takes you through those fundamentals we've kind of alluded to. But my real passion for this summer is to create the Summer of Freedom, which it's born from the idea, actually. I'm a big rock and roller at heart. I love guitar music, and growing up I listened to things like Jimi Hendrix, The Doors, and all these kind of psychedelic rock bands, and I began to form a fascination with like the 1960s counterculture. And there's this thing in the 1960s called the Summer of Love. In 1967, it was the Summer of Love. There was all this conflict in the world. There was political disarray. There was frustration with the political leaders. There was frustration with the warfare and conflict in the world. People were fed up with the kind of job system. And as I say those things, doesn't it sound very similar to the environment that we live in right now? It's exactly 50 years on. And there was a theme during the 60s called the kind of mantra of the 60s was turn on, tune in, and drop out. And it was all said with good intention, but the drop out piece led to people dropping out of the system and not necessarily finding their place. So this summer, I'm taking some of the principles. I'm recognizing that the world is in a similar place 50 years on. And it's my mission to create this Summer of Freedom, which is to help people find personal and business freedom. And freedom to me is the power to be authentically, unquestionably yourself, which is free from judgment, and you live a life, you get to do and have life on your terms as you define it. So this is a radical shift in terms of where I'm heading, but I'm borrowing the terms from the 60s. I'm calling it turn on to your potential, turn on to what is possible for you, and forget what other people say is possible or not possible for you. We've been conditioned to believe that we can and cannot do certain things. So number one is to turn on to your potential, turn on to what is possible for you. The second thing is to tune in to what you really want and who you really are. Tune in to what you really want. And again, dare to dream. In that 5-day process last week, the Business Freedom course, I took people right from the beginning where they had this limited thinking about what was possible for them to the end of the week. And now they're seeing life how they want to see it. They're creating freedom by actually giving themselves the freedom to act and think without the fear of judgment of other people. So tune into what you really want, and tune into who you really are. And then the final piece, rather than dropping out, we're going to rise up and be the leader that you're born. Rise up and be the leader you were born to be. Because it's taken a lot. For me, personally, it's taken me a long time to recognize and accept my own value as a human being. It's taken me a long time to accept that I do have a talent and a greatness, but do it in a way that's free from ego. I don't need to say I'm here to say I'm great. I'm just here to recognize internally. I internally validate myself. I don't need external validation, someone to tell me. That's the ego speaking again. From the inside, I validate myself. I know my talent. I'm rising up as the leader myself. So my goal is to help people to find that freedom by allowing them to create that freedom of expression in their life, but through their business as well. Because to me, business, if you look at every type of business, from a solo entrepreneur to a corporate, it's a reflection of the personalities. It's a reflection of the culture of the individual. So yeah, my goal this summer is to bring together, it's to bring together like-minded people who really want to live that life of freedom, that truest freedom.
If people want to learn about that, where would they go?
So the easiest way would be to come and find me on danjgregory.com or come and see me on Facebook. My page, surprisingly, Dan J. Gregory. And I use the J because someone else had already bought dangregory.com. Someone had bought dangregory.com, danielgregory.com. So you got to protect your IP out there. So I got Dan J. Gregory, like Michael J. Fox. It has that kind of ring. Yeah. J stands for Jarvis, if anyone's curious. But yeah, danjgregory.com or my Facebook page, Dan J. Gregory. Or the Unstoppable podcast is on pause right now. It's season 1 is just completed. Season 2 is about to kick off. I'm at episode 100 plus. The first part of that series is all going to be about the summer of freedom. It's my goal over the next 3 months, next 90 days, to bring together other leaders, other inspirational figures and characters, people like yourself, to come together and really, really collectively work together to spread this message of unleashing yourself and finding freedom through life and business. This is not a project that I can lead myself. I need to bring together other leaders to share the message, because I truly believe over this summer we can create a transformational shift in people's lives, and we can create a transformational shift on the planet, especially about shifting people's thinking about how do we contribute and how do we add value. Because I honestly think all the conflict we're seeing in the world, the people say charity starts at home, change starts at home, change starts with one person at a time. If we can find love and freedom within ourselves, we can change the world.
Love it. Guys, it has been amazing having Dan on the show. As he said, go check him out at danjgregory.com or on Facebook, Dan J. Gregory. Till next time, have an incredible day and we'll see you in the next show.
Pleasure. Thanks for having me.